Hey everybody, welcome back to the award-winning YouTube channel, United View. We are here with another episode of What the Devil, a collaboration between United District. I'm Dylan, and today we have DJ back once again after his stellar podcast last week, and Yusuf is joining us as well. Remember to like, subscribe, listen on all the podcast platforms if you can't watch Law Live or hear the whole podcast right now, but we are going to go dive straight into news that came up this morning from the Manchester Evening News about Kobbie Mainoo's situation. So there's been a lot of stuff said about Mainoo because he's out, he's injured, he's not been able to say anything. Like, there's been no much official communication with it. The Guardian's been claiming that he's leaving. Other people have been saying the contract talks going on and everything. And so the Manchester Evening News today, Stephen Railston, I very much trust this guy. He's very good with the academy. He's good with the internal workings at United and reporting and stuff. He said that there is a genuine possibility that Mainoo could leave this summer. His information was that obviously a new contract hasn't been signed yet, and there needs to be a compromise between Mainoo and the club in order to reach an agreement. And if that can't be reached, that United think and Mainoo thinks that it would be best if the two parties just parted ways. If United were to look to sell him in the summer, they'd ask for 70 million quid. And that, what was the last point they said? Oh yeah, and that his position and where he fits into Amrim's plans is only going to be assessed in the summer. Okay. So obviously Mainoo's been out for almost 6 weeks, 2 months now with the calf injury, maybe a bit less than that. And he's already had another injury under Ruben Amorim earlier, and he had the injury to his ankle before he made his debut under Ten Hag. Yeah. But when he's not been injured, he's been, ridiculous, amazing. I would genuinely say probably our best academy talents come out of our academy in 15 years. I can't think of who else really has been as fantastic and amazing.
Rashford, Pogba, that's about it.
Yeah, but even then, Rashford's been amazing, but Pogba was developed in the first team at Juventus and then came back. So I don't necessarily but basically I think Mainoo, he's up there at the very top. Yeah. And I think that if we were to get rid of Mainoo this summer, I think it would be an utter disgrace. Yeah. I really, really, really do. As much as the Rashford thing has hurt me, from a perspective of I grew up watching this guy make his debut, do this, become the 30 goal a season player, win the trophies that he has won with us. I was actually sat this morning at my desk reading the news and just thinking this might hurt more. So Rashford leaving this summer will hurt because it's sentimental, but Mainoo leaving this summer,
you wouldn't know how to cope.
In the way of I think it's insane. Yeah. It's ridiculous. The idea that Mainoo we'd not try our best to keep him and everything is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'd like to think, when you look at everyone behind the scenes, so the Omar Baradas, Nick Cox and all those people involved behind the scenes at Manchester United, I'd like to think that to them, they value talent, they value young players. As you said, Mainoo's been one of our stalwart young players coming through the academy. I'd like to think that, calmer heads are going to prevail. They're going to use their intelligence in this situation. However, I think this Mainoo contract is going to set a precedent for other young players coming through. They don't want to overpay him, but they don't want to underpay him. So it's about coming to that compromise, which is the word that was used. Coming to that fair compromise. I guess with young players like Mainoo, you're also judging on potential. So there is going to be maybe a little bit of inflation in what you'll pay for the potential, even though he hasn't realised it fully yet. So I think he'll stay. I think there's just going to be posturing from his agent, which he should do. Manchester United aren't in the best place, so his agent should push for as much money as he should do. These things aren't uncommon when you have a young player that's in a team that's not doing too well, but they've been one of the shining lights. So I think he'll stay. I think we've got finally good footballing people behind the scenes in Barada and Nick Cox to say, no, this is a young player that needs to be kept. And I guess we'll go into where he fits in the team a bit later, but yeah, I think he'll stay.
Yeah, so I'm just reading a couple comments now that's coming in. Skiliana says, I'd be gutted if Mainoo left. Very talented player. He's so young that it'd be stupid to say he can't fit in Amorim's system.
Agreed.
Chiku has said, this is too sentimental from our fan base, moaning about Rashford and Mainoo. Amorim doesn't have enough time to develop Mainoo and win with him. That I don't understand, because if anything Mainoo has is time. He's 19. Yeah. It's not like he's 25, 26-year-old, hopefully getting into his prime. we have more time with him than we have with most academy players because he was coming through at fresh 18 years old.
He's also already good.
Yeah, he is also already fantastic.
There is that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also, same as last week, DJ, there's a lot of love for you.
Man,
Steffi Jenkins says, DJ is always amazing, missed him on the channel.
I'm here.
So you're back here second
here,
week in a
man.
row. But Yusuf, I want to come to you with kind of respect to how you feel about the current sticky situation with Mainoo.
I genuinely think like selling Mainoo would be like the death of Man United Football Club as we know it. I think
The death of Man United Football Club.
you know, this
People already dead.
Rashford's going. There's still people selling Garnacho for pure profit. Mainoo, we'll take the 70 million for Mainoo. Like, bro, what's this? All this pure profit talk? Okay, if you want to go support KPMG and PwC, like, go do that. You can talk about pure profit or whatever there. All right, this is football. We cannot. The academy is what makes this club what it is. You're telling me this is a kid like from Manchester. He's grown up through the academy. He's come through. He's killed it. He's scored in an FA Cup final. Got man of the match in an FA Cup final, and people are talking about wanting to sell him. Explain that to me. Or people are like, I'd be alright selling him.
I think most people aren't talking about wanting to sell
or like,
him.
you know, they're talking about the club, maybe the club thinking about selling him.
But the idea of selling him
Yeah,
does exist,
sorry,
and some people are saying that maybe it's a good idea or whatever because of the lack of fit in the system.
I think both parties need to keep the options open because this is football. Like nothing's ever promised, and I just think that, just as you said, Yusuf, like he's literally from Manchester. He's grown up in and around the club.
Yeah,
and you said he's good. He's passed. He's passed nearly every test that's been put in front of him. He's played against some of the best players in world football. If you think about it, he's played in the big games, right? He's played for England a few times now. We genuinely have a young person, especially in the midfield. We just have a young player that could develop into a really, really good player in the next few years. And like you said, he's got loads of time. So I'm looking at that to think, look, they'll work out something with the contract. And, you know, look, if it doesn't work out in 5 years, then you know that you can sell him because he's probably going to become a very, very good player.
He'll be 24.
He'll be a great asset.
Anyway, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it'll be very, very stupid of United to let him go. Very, very stupid. And I think for players like Mainoo, because of his talent, Amrin has to make adjustments to the first 11 and to the system, Yusuf, the system that he's a part of, because you have to include players like Mainoo.
Can we ban the S word on this podcast?
No,
bro, that word is here to stay for a number of years. But I want to zero in quickly on something you mentioned, DJ, just before about United. Like this Mainoo contract sets a kind of a precedent, an example with regards to future contracts. Yeah. The way I would see that is I actually think Mainoo, whatever happens with Mainoo, will be seen potentially as an exception to how they will give new contracts to players, because I think they've already started to set a precedent with that. With like Dorgu's contract is about 40k a week. Yeah. When Bruno Fernandes first joined, he was on 110 grand a week, which was double what he earned at Sporting, but realistically actually quite modest for a 50 million pound signing. Ahmad was only on about 30 grand a week for 4 or 5 years before he finally cemented himself as one of the best players in the clubs. Then he got his, and now he's only on 120k a week. Like that's got room to grow for maybe the next contract if he stays here. How I see this Mainoo contract is, it would be hard for, I think, academy players to point to. Let's say Mainoo does sign a contract, right? Let's say it ends up in the region of, let's say around where Ahmad is, maybe 120 to 150 grand a week, around there. I don't think academy players who then want a new contract in 3-4 years' time, let's say players who are coming up, like Chido Obi, for example, let's say he's doing really well in like 21, 22, he's like, I want a new contract. Unless, okay, Chido Obi might be a good example because he's also amazing, but other academy players, them being able to point to Mainoo, I think, wouldn't be a good idea, because Mainoo is already, as we said, a very, very good player. He started in the final of the European Championships. He's won man of the match awards with England. He kicked Trent Alexander-Arnold out of midfield in the Euros. And that's not even just like when Southgate was experimenting. That was his first start for England in the Euros, I think, was in the first knockout game.
Yeah.
It's like, I think you're not necessarily giving a contract here to a young potential player and hoping he becomes good. I think to a certain extent, you're actually also just giving this contract to a
Good player.
like a very, very, very good player because he's proved that. He's won man of the match awards. He's scored. He absolutely decimated Rodri in that FA Cup final, man. Like him versus Rodri in that midfield. Mainoo won man of the match. He scored the winning goal.
Do you think it though is something to do with the hunger? Because we have seen in the past where young players, they show promise, they're good young players, they get the bumper contract, and then things just go downhill from there. Do you think it's United trying to retain hunger with our young players?
Maybe, but I see this, like for example, if this was our situation with Garnacho right now, I wouldn't be saying the same thing.
Okay.
Because I do see Mainoo as a level above pretty much any other young player who's coming through. Like, so he's seeing Euro on 115 grand a week. He's seeing Ahmad at 22 on 120 grand a week. I don't believe the reports saying he wants 180. I think that is excessive. I can see why he demands maybe a little higher than that, but he's seeing these players on these contracts, and I would put him in the same category as Euro. I put him in the same category as Ahmad. But obviously there is the big question mark about where he fits, because since Amarim's come in, he was playing in the pivot alongside Ugarte, but there was the system. Sorry, Yusuf. The structure, or whatever you want to say it, was very wide. He was covering a lot of space. He then got injured. He then came back, and then he played a few games in the 10 position, and then he played 45 minutes as false 9 for some reason. But I think everyone's just forgotten about that. But when he has played in the 10 system, he looked very good in, against FCSB in the Europa League, and then for the other 45 minutes against Palace when he played in the 10, he looked very good. Then he got injured again. So I feel like this hasn't helped him, because if he was not injured right now, and he's been playing in those 10 positions with Bruno further back, and it meant that he was rotating with Garnacho and Xerxes for those 10 positions, he would be in a much stronger place for this contract. And I don't think many people would actually be against United giving Mainoo contract, because they'd be able to see him playing in Amram's system, because I have a lot of faith that he can play in that midfield still, but obviously there are major question marks around where he's going to play.
What I'll say just quickly, just on that, is Amarim at first was quite rigid in the sense of, this is my system, this is where my players need to play, and that's it. We saw us getting decimated because of the large gaps in the midfield. Players like Casemiro at the time couldn't cover all the ground, Mainoo especially, and he couldn't cover the ground. And I remember Amarim came out after, I can't remember what game it was, he came out after the game and he said, we pushed Mainoo into the 10 because, now he doesn't have to do as much running as he was doing before, and we can utilise him in the final third a lot effective. And as you said, you touched just before we went live, is got a goal and assist. So maybe that is the position, but then you're looking at, would you play him and Xerxes in those 10 roles? Just him and Xerxes with Bruno and Cass maybe, or Bruno and Ugarte? Is that what you would do?
So, in terms of those 10 roles, we now hopefully have 4, and then potentially end of season 5 players. At the moment, the last few weeks, we've had 2 players for those 2 positions. We've had Xerxes and Garnacho. They're the only 2 players, and those 2 players aren't initially, naturally, we wouldn't have pegged them as players in those positions. Garnacho because we've always seen Garnacho as a wide winger. We saw Xerxes initially as a striker. They've done well, I think, Xerxes on the left and right, and also Garnacho on the right. They've done well. But we're getting to a point now, hopefully, where we're going to have up to 5 players available for those situations. We'll have Xerxes and Garnacho still, Kobbie Mainoo when he comes back, because I think that is going to be soon. Then we've got Mason Mount, who's just come back. Obviously, it's an if and but if he can stay fit. But as of right now, he's been in training for 2 weeks. He was in the Leicester team. He is an option. And then when Ahmad comes back, which hopefully will be sooner than we expect, hopefully before the end of the season, that's then 5 players in those 2 positions. And I think that Mainoo should be considered as one of those, as well as one of the players who can play deeper. I think he can be considered as both, like the way that we consider, I think most of us consider Bruno as both. The moment, I think United fan, the majority, we prefer Bruno further back just because of how amazing he's been recently. But I think that obviously Bruno Fernandes can play in one of those higher positions if he wants to. He could probably also play striker and wing back, genuinely. But the way I see Mainoo as be able to play in both positions, especially if we keep this slightly more compact version of this midfield. So this is what I touched on before we went live, was in recent weeks, the reason Casemiro has been so much better, and I think Amarim said this too, is because Amarim's got him staying further back. He hasn't got Casemiro. As you've pointed out, Yusuf, Casemiro isn't involved constantly in pressing up high, whereas before he was. And when Mainoo and Casemiro were playing well together, pre-Amorim, that was, if I'm thinking correctly, Casemiro was more staying further back and Mainoo was therefore allowed to stay a little further forwards rather than having to run forwards and press and also play higher. Yeah. So I think if we continue, at least for the rest of this season, with that slightly more compact midfield, I think Mainoo can play in the pivot because Mainoo will have Dorgu. Because I'm seeing Mainoo playing on the left of him and Casemiro. Yep. He'd have Dorgu combining with him on the left-hand side. He'd have Yoro or Heaven or Delit, whoever behind him. And then he's got the 10 in front of him. So I think he will have players around him. He'll have Casemiro kind of, I'd say, sweeping, staying a bit further back and being a bit more of an anchor. Yeah. So I think compared to when he was playing alongside Ugarte and having to cover loads of ground, I think now, if he was to go back in this system, he would be able to have more people around him, have to cover less ground game to game, and he'll be able to have the ball at his feet more, which is where he plays his best football. Yusuf,
you're not into systems. No. So where would you see Mainoo most effective then?
I think Mainoo and Casemiro is our most balanced midfield pivot, to be honest. I still think Bruno is at his best higher up the pitch, and actually his recent form has come partly because, like you said, Dylan, Casemiro is sitting. Bruno is able to push up a little bit, and there's a few more numbers higher up the pitch. So I think Bruno, whilst he's starting nominally in a pivot, he's actually playing higher up, and I think like that's helping him a lot. But Casemiro provides that balance, and I'm glad Amarim's made this change. I'm quite annoyed because he could have done it all along, but he was just like forcing this idea that wasn't working. He's made the change. Casemiro's not jumping up and pressing the way Ugarte was, and let's be honest, Ugarte was getting skinned quite a lot. Casemiro and Eriksen against Newcastle was a hard watch. He's changed it now. He's been smart. So Casemiro's sitting, he's anchoring, and it helps us move the ball up the pitch a little bit better as well, having Casemiro there. But if Mainoo plays with him, Mainoo can join up a little bit higher, and I think that suits Mainoo. I think Mainoo's good at like joining the attack from central midfield positions. Bruno, I still think, is at his best in that 10 spot, but like we know Mainoo's had a few troubles with injuries and things, so you can always have Mainoo play some games and Bruno play some games higher. Then Mainoo maybe has a few games where he rests and Fernandes starts deeper, or even Mount can start deeper. And like we know that Mainoo is 19 as well. We don't have to start him in every single game. I completely agree. Protect him a little bit is the kind of best thing to do. But I think that, yeah, I still see Mainoo as a central midfielder more than a number 10. But I think it's nice that we have the option of playing him in the number 10 position. Actually, that's another sign of his quality. I think we're talking about, can he fit a system? But here we're talking about him playing two very different positions. Like, he's got versatile qualities. He's a very, very gifted player. If he can't fit a system, your system's the problem.
I honestly, because we saw it under Ten Hag, mainly when he was playing kind of in the middle of the two positions we're talking about, when he was playing more as an A. But you think back to, for example, the Wolves game where he scored that amazing last-minute winner. That was kind of playing in like kind of a little bit like an inside 10. He was in that in that pocket, as the phrase is.
I think he's really good in the final third, honestly.
I think he's fantastic. He's got a good shot on him. Yeah. He's quick with his feet. Good. I think generally his weight of pass and all that is clear. And I think he just needs people around it, because he's not an incredible athlete. Yeah. But we've all known this from minute one. He's great with the ball at his feet. He's a really good dribbler, good passer, as I say, good shot on him, all of that. But he can't run a million miles. Not like no one's Bruno Fernandes apart from Bruno Fernandes. I feel like some people expect Mainoo to be able to be the kind of athlete that Bruno is, for example. Yeah. He's not. But he doesn't need to be.
I think Mainoo in small spaces is a much better athlete. So, it swings and roundabouts. Mainoo in a kind of a 5-yard radius eats everything alive.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. But I mean in terms of having to sweep and cover loads of space. We know, but we've always known he can't do that. Yeah. Which is why when he was first starting with England, everyone was like, him and Declan Rice is in a ridiculous duo. Yeah. And it was really good at the Euros, and it's been really good for him because Declan Rice has those qualities and Mainoo's got the other ones. Yeah. And almost whenever you've got a midfield pairing, they tend to not be two identical players. They tend to be players who have contrasting qualities. Like whatever one person is not as great at, the other one is. Yeah. So in the deeper, more compact midfield that we're playing at the moment, with Casemiro being fantastic with his long range passing, booting the ball up the pitch, and mainly with the ball at his feet. Yeah. I think it can work.
I felt when he was under Ten Hag, I felt that he was getting exposed quite a lot in the middle of the park, Mainoo, because of the large gaps in him having to literally chase and harry down. But as you said, I think now that we're more compact, this would suit him much better. And in the final third, because we were just talking about it, I love the way that how he can keep the ball. He rarely gives the ball away. So his decision making in the final third is something that is a good quality about his, but we can tell that it's going to get even better. So him in the final third is an asset, especially if we can get, Cheeto up to speed with his finishing ability. It kind of leads good things for him.
Yeah, I just think the discourse around him is being fueled by the fact that he's not playing.
Yeah, most of
I
it.
really, really do.
That and United being in a kind of struggle this season, I think, is most of it. Because I think he'll come to a compromise.
I really, really, I hope so. And with my rational head on, I do think he's staying, right? Like, I think because Ratcliffe's come out, right? He said we are not going to be selling anyone for purely financial. Sorry, we're not selling any academy players for purely financial reasons. He's come out, he said that, and I do believe him. We spoke last week about the Ratcliffe stuff. In general, I believe what he said, and I believe he believes what he said.
Yeah.
So if Mainoo is sold, I think there will be a genuine reason why. I won't be happy, but I do see, hopefully, it's just like the slight, it's the football fan and Manchester United being terrible for 10 years inside me that makes me panic and worry about Mainoo going.
Do you think, though, so here's something to consider, and I'm not saying that this has been put out there. Do you think that there's a part of him and his camp that are looking at Manchester United right now and saying, are they going to win anything in the next couple of years? Also, I'm a talented player. I've just got into the England setup. I'm kind of one of the shining lights. I could easily go to a City or go somewhere else where they're going to be challenging every season. Maybe he's thinking, for my brand, for me, maybe Manchester United isn't going to be the best environment because we're just not challenging for anything.
There's probably thoughts of that, but then at the same time, you've got to remember this. He's a United fan. He's grown up through the academy, and he'll have been sold a project by the higher ups, and he's going to think my last resort is to leave Manchester United for myself. If there's any like even 1% of a future where I see Man United as the best place for me, I'll take that 1% because Man United is literally that's what he's grown up with. And these kids, like, there's that culture of Man United. They do care. They do want to be here. And we've had a rubbish season, but we're talking about being like, one of the favourites for the Europa League, and like if that happens, we get in the Champions League and we can spend a bit of money, and get some better players, and suddenly, if we win the Europa League, things flip, and it's like, actually, you know what, this can be the start of something with Ruben Amorim. So it's not as simple as like...
I'm sure that conversation has been had because every player in every club ever will have the conversation, but I actually don't think that's too much of a factor because he's 19. If I'm thinking correctly, he's also represented by his family or his dad or something. So they obviously, he specifically was represented by a very close connection with the club. He's been there since the age of 8, live in Stockport, born in Stockport, that kind of thing. And also, because the fact he's only 19, I think leaving for the sake of his personal brand is actually a bigger risk than him staying at the moment. Maybe if you're 24, 25, 26, right? Let's say you're at the stage where Ronaldo left United, right? He's 24, 25 years old. And he was like, right, you know what would be next? I've won the Champions League at United. I've won 3-4 Premier League titles. I'm now going to go to Madrid and do the same thing in Madrid, like what Trent's doing at the moment, right? Yeah. He's hitting his peak and he's going, right, I've done everything I can at Liverpool. I've established myself as one of the best right backs in Premier League history, debatably, obviously. But one like a potential, like one of the best players Liverpool has had in the last 20 years. I secured them their first league title in whatever years. Now that I've done that, now I'm going to go abroad and go and do that with Real Madrid. I'm going to go and do that with players with whoever. If Mainoo was to leave now, it's kind of like you haven't actually done. You won the FA Cup, but also that's not massive in the grand scheme of things of what other players have done before going on and securing legacies elsewhere.
Does his head get turned though if, say, a Madrid come in for him? Not saying they will, but if they did, do you reckon his head would get turned? I would not answer that because I think that's way too much of a because there's too much of a hypothetical.
Also, Madrid have got like such a stacked midfield right now.
Yeah, it's like I think I hope he thinks, and I think he should think, him and his agents, but his best option is to stay.
Yeah.
I think it really is because there's a place for him here. Everyone loves him here, and he's a fantastic midfielder. And there's some comments that are saying that the fan stuff is so I love the whole fan thing, but hell no, if I put a player ahead of the success of a team, the sentimental thing's got to go. I do think it plays a factor. Yeah. Academy players are more loved than any other player at this club. Yeah. I think it's fine to admit that. Yeah. You don't have to be ruthless and say, no, we only care about successful players. No, the point of United is academy success and everything, which is why our academy, whenever I do academy coverage in United District, blows. Yeah. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views on every single tweet because fans love it. It's the blood of this club, and I think Mainoo should stay. I hope he does stay, and I think the myth around the whole he doesn't fit the system is just a myth.
Yeah, I agree.
I really don't think it's anything more than talk because he's not played.
You know, I know you cast us out for always arguing. I really wish Marcel was here because he'd just be like going on a completely passionate rant about how it's necessary that we keep Mainoo and
Well, I think I don't necessarily agree with everything Marcel says, but I think he would be right in that.
I agree. You know what? Actually, I'm going to say it, Marcel. I owe an apology. I said Aiden Heaven would not be ready to go in the first team now.
Yeah.
And based on what I heard about from Arsenal fans, from people with knowledge of the academy scene and stuff, I thought he'd take a bit more time to settle in. He's coming and he's looked fantastic. So Marcel, I don't think your take was based on actually having watched him. I think you were just being optimistic, but hats off.
Mate, Aiden Heaven was, hopefully he's back in training today. Yeah.
Hopefully,
I hope. So players normally come back. International players normally start training again on a Thursday. Yeah. And there was a report saying that he might return to training this week. So hopefully he's back today. But I want to move on to another player who's been linked with a move away recently, which is Andre Onana. So there have been links to him in Saudi Arabia. I think they are overblown links at the moment. Romano said there's been no proper contacts or proposals or anything, but there have been reports from almost every outlet that United are looking at potentially signing a new goalkeeper this summer. Doesn't necessarily say which level of goalkeeper, because Bayindir might leave, Tom Heaton's retiring, and Andre Onana's been dodgy. So we don't know if that's United will bring in another number 2, or someone to challenge Onana, or someone to flat out replace Onana. But I want to pose the question, amidst Onana being sometimes amazing and sometimes absolutely terrible, there's no in between with him either. I just want to pose the question, is it actually a priority to replace him? Or should United put replacing Onana on the back burner and consider replacing other players and buying different players, outfield players first? Because I don't think that Onana is the biggest issue at United. I think with a more solid defence, because obviously you've got multiple centre-backs leaving, a more solid defence without all the injuries, and once the pre-season settles and everything, I think Onana will improve. And I think maybe get rid of him next summer. I don't know. Let's see how it goes next season. But I think it will be better to keep Onana and use the limited funds that we do have to replace the outfield players first, before then potentially getting rid of Onana next season. Because if we have better outfield players, Onana might become better as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything else?
No, I just agree. I agree. Yeah. I think Onana's I'm going to say I like Onana, I'll be honest, right? He has a lot of brain farts sometimes. He makes a lot of silly errors. But I think it's overdone with him a little bit. I think, where he has a lot of errors, he also has a lot of, blinders. Like you said, there's no in-between. It's he's hot. He's hot or cold. But, I feel like he's hot more than he's cold. And I also do think, all right, the S word...
System,
all right? I do think the way we build out at the moment does not maximise his qualities on the ball. A lot of the times, either he's playing it short to the centre-backs or he's poofing it long, which doesn't suit the strikers either. But you've got a Swiss Army knife ball player in goal, man. You got to push him up a little bit, have him join the centre-backs in the build-up, and you let him play with the ball a little bit more. Let him, be a bit more expansive rather than zip or zip.
What about his mistakes, though?
He makes mistakes, definitely. And I feel like with Onana, I've said this before, his mistakes come where he makes one, they come in batches because he loses confidence. It's weird for such an outwardly confident player. He does get knocked quite a bit. And at some point, the mistakes, but then I always go back to Edison because I think Edison is just as mistake prone, at least as Onana, whilst not being as good as Onana when Onana's good. And look at what City have done with him. That's the example I always go back to. They've got that really strong, team. They've had in previous years, anyways. They've had that really strong team in place. They've minimised the work he's had to do where he's weak, but they get the best out of him with what he's good at. playing the ball and stuff. And I think Onana, like, he commands the area quite well. He comes out, he claims his crosses. He does a lot of good things that people don't recognise. But some of the errors, I think it's because they're such stupid errors.
They are absolute shockers.
Like, it's not just like a normal goalkeeper error. It's just it's like a really, really stupid error.
I think it's really easy to be angrier at a goalkeeper than any other position.
Yeah.
In general in football, yeah, it's easier to be angry at a goalkeeper than it is to be at a striker, because a striker misses a chance, he can still score another one. If a keeper makes a mistake, they can't concede a goal. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes,
like, once you've conceded a mistake, that's set in stone. You've conceded a goal, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was reading so the reason I brought this up is because I was reading an article on The Athletic yesterday, specifically about Onana, and even more specifically why he's absolutely hoofing it every game. Because it's annoyed me. It's really annoyed me. And the article broke down why. And basically what it said was that Onana has been instructed to just whack the ball long if he's in a situation where it's too risky to play a short pass.
Yeah.
Which I think is happening quite a lot at the moment, because United are because United are fragile. We're still fragile at the back.
Yeah.
Teams are getting right on top of us.
And because we, like, I'm going to be honest, the way we set out our build-up is really stupid. I hate this middle centre-back stepping into midfield thing. It doesn't make sense. It clogs the spaces, right? It literally, like, it works against us. It makes it easy for teams to press us. In fact, they don't even need to press us. We do the job for them because we block all the options by clogging that space in the middle. Just, like, why? Stop forcing it. Like, I know Amrin wants his system and whatever, but I'm trying. It sounds like, I'm being so critical of Amrin. I actually like the guy, but there's some things I'm just like, you're not sacrificing yourself as a man. Like, if you move your middle centre-back out of the midfield, you're actually just being sensible. It doesn't make sense. But if you change the way we space ourselves in the build-up, then suddenly it's actually not as risky to play short passes.
Yeah. You see, the thing with Onana for me, right, is I was an advocate of David De Gea. And David De Gea, as we know, was one of the best shot stoppers in the game, right? Now, here's the thing. The same reason why David De Gea left was because of the mistakes that he was making. It was becoming quite a continuous thing in big games. I'm not saying Onana hasn't been here as long, but I'm saying that the mistakes he has made are absolutely atrocious, and he shouldn't be making those mistakes. Those mistakes he shouldn't be able to make. His whole body position, and I remember speaking to Flex about this in KG. When we signed him, I was looking at him and I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, he's a ball-playing keeper. But then I'm looking at some of his shot stopping and it was all right. But his positioning was like, his body positioning, like the mechanics of it were off, and I knew that was going to get us into trouble. Lo and behold, Onana plays. And when he does make mistakes, again, it's the mechanics of it. However, the good things he does do, he does them well. The shot stopping has slightly improved. We've been getting peppered. Like, early in the season, we was getting peppered. So, and he was doing what he needed to do. So I think you give him another season. The question was, is he going to be a priority to change? No, not for me. Not for me, not at all. Not when we've got the issues in the outfield. Do you know what I mean? We're probably going to lose quite a few players. So there's going to be a few players that need to be replaced. He is not one of them at this current point, for me anyway.
I don't overly disagree, to be fair. I don't think Onana is the long-term solution for our goal. I think in 2 or 3 seasons' time we'll have a new number one. We'll have a goalkeeper wearing number one who actually starts as well. Yeah. It gets me a little bit, the fact that Onana wears, like, 23, 24 instead of number one. Like, why is Bayindir the number one? It is bizarre. But I would caveat what you said a little bit about the David De Gea thing. I think was more complicated than that. I think ultimately fans turned on him once all the mistakes were happening. But I think why he went was because his shot stopping. So his shot stopping was what was keeping him in the job. But I think the shot stopping was what's the best way to put it? Like the positive outweighed the negatives with him. Yeah. He was commanding in the box. He wasn't coming for crosses. He hardly ever punched. He was always stood on his line when a corner comes in, waiting to make that save. Yeah. And it got to the point where we wanted to move on from a reactive goalkeeper to a more proactive goalkeeper, and that isn't what David De Gea was.
That one punch against PSG, by the way, was so funny, bro.
Oh, the one we were straight to Di Maria.
Oh my God.
I do think about that one quite a lot. I think with De Gea, it became a case of the positives were no longer outweighing the negatives, and I also I think that point will come with Onana, probably in maybe next season. But I still a lot of the comments are saying just get rid of him. It should be a priority. Right to Excellence has said Mainoo is staying exclusive. Somehow I don't quite believe you, but I still think that he shouldn't go yet, because I also think that there is a chance he can improve. Because what I was going to say, the point about the who thing long thing, is the other thing is when he is getting the ball long, the strikers aren't winning it.
Yeah.
So it was something along the lines of, out of it was like 5 goalkeepers made more long passes than him of late in the Premier League, but only one of them had a worse success rate, which was like Dean Henderson, I think, at Crystal Palace. But I don't think that's down to some of them are bizarre. He kicks them straight out of play.
Yeah.
Like with that I'm not going to excuse. It's so irritating, and I keep tweeting on District every time I go. Onana kicked out of play again. But I do think to a certain extent it is also that percentage of winning should be higher. Yeah. And if we were booting the ball long and that win rate was, even if it was 40% or 50% rather than 25%, we would be under less pressure. And I think Onana would also be under less pressure because it would be working. Yeah.
I think if he can hit Xerxes in the 10 with his clearances.
So 40% of his long balls go to the left-hand side, which is where Xerxes is.
Yeah.
It's something like that. His long passes. His passes that are longer than 40 yards, 40% of them go towards the left, which makes sense. He's right-footed and he's kicking that way. Yeah. But that's where Xerxes is, and he's not winning them.
Yeah.
But I know it's controversial. Yeah, I think Onana should stay for now. Yeah. Because I would much rather than having to sell Onana, find the funds, scout a new keeper, just you put those resources elsewhere. Go and buy a new striker, a new centre back, 2 new midfielders, a new right wing back, or right number 10, however you want to say it. Yeah. But goalkeeper's like 5th or 6th on that list.
It's also so much fun when Onana just gets the ball and someone's pressing him and he just chops past him.
Mate, it's great. And also, you said you like Onana. I agree. As a personality and a character, I think he's fantastic. He's also what David De Gea wasn't. Yeah. I think in terms of that, as a public, if he makes an interview, he admits his mistake, he apologises, but he goes there and he talks to his teammates and he stays strong. Yeah. That is one thing that he doesn't cave, he doesn't fold, and that's what we don't have a lot of in this squad. Yeah. Bruno doesn't fold, Onana doesn't fold, Casemiro, I say, doesn't fold, in terms of like when pressure's on him or backs against the wall kind of thing, but so many of the players previously have. Yeah, and I think we need players like him in the squad, even if there are drawbacks and everything.
Yeah, and who knows, if he goes on to next season, if he goes on to have a great season, then this becomes
then
just
it's all right,
fake memory, doesn't it? Yeah. So need to literally look at what's in the middle of the park first.
Yeah, but I want to now look ahead a bit to the next few games. So this international break has felt very long, and it was nice the first week of it because we come off 3-0 win against Leicester. Wales, my country, we won against Kazakhstan, 3-1, fantastic video thing, and then but now it's starting to drag on a bit, huh?
I'm just glad I can see out the rest of Ramadan without worrying about football.
That's a very good point. But so we're playing Forest next on Tuesday, I believe, because there's no, is it at the FA Cup weekend this weekend or something?
Yeah, FA Cup weekend.
Yeah, FA Cup weekend this weekend. Then we're playing on Tuesday, Forest. Then we've got Man City on the following weekend. Then Lyon, Newcastle, Lyon,
Wolves,
Bournemouth, which is an insane run. But the big question for me in those games is who starts in midfield alongside Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah, true.
Because Mount might be coming back and playing in the 10 or whatever, but I see most of the positions I think are they're filled. Bar right centre back, we're waiting to see on the fitness of Yoro and the fitness of Heaven. Dorgu's back in for left wing back. Dallo will play right wing back. Maguire or Delit in the middle, and then Mazwari right centre back. But yeah, it's because Casemiro 2 months ago, right, forgotten man completely. Yep. Out of the plans, set to be sold. And Ugarte was playing pretty much every week. Ugarte then got injured, and as we mentioned before, Amorim started playing a bit more of a tight midfield. Yeah. And Casemiro's done so well. He was amazing in those games against Sociedad. He was fantastic against Arsenal. And then Ugarte came back against Leicester and was, I think, okay. And then he's had a bit of stick for his game the other day with Uruguay. Yep. But Casemiro, I think, is the guy who should be playing.
Yeah.
Alongside Bruno Fernandes for now.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think I was one of his harshest critics. I was like, you know what, get him out of this club. But look, I'm always willing to eat humble pie. You know, he played very well. We're seeing a lot more of his ball playing skills. That's not something that he was necessarily known for because, you know, he had a midfield of, you know, Kroos and Modric previously. But I think the screener role is perfect for him. You always kind of want him in front of the opposition attackers, just in front of our defence. I think that's the best role for him. I think this pressing style and being ultra aggressive when you're pressing against, you know, some of these younger players, more athletic players, you know, that's a recipe for disaster. If we can keep playing to his strengths in the middle of the park and keeping it compact, then you're seeing the best of him. Like against Arsenal, I thought he was absolutely fantastic against Arsenal.
Yeah, he was amazing.
So yeah, I think he's earned the right to start with Bruno.
A few points. Can I firstly just say, when Casemiro was out of the team, I was saying we should start him when everyone else was talking about Ugarte. I was saying we should play Casemiro, right? People think, okay, oh, Yusuf's just got an agenda on Ugarte. Like, no, I actually like. This is just how I see it. Like, look, I like Ugarte's fight and the effort he puts in every game, but he's got very real flaws like that I don't like in a midfielder, and I think Casemiro is just the better player, to be honest, and suits the team better. But yeah, a couple things about Casemiro. The ball playing, he passes vertically. We didn't have that in the midfield before with Ugarte.
It's true.
And that vertical passing makes such a difference. I always say in a team you want a midfielder with a passing range that can cover the pitch. All right, we got Bruno deeper, but then Bruno goes and plays higher and stuff. He's not as committed as a deeper midfielder, like, if you know what I mean. He goes and pushes higher. Casemiro, as that committed deep midfielder, he can spray the ball around, and that helps us move the ball up the pitch and actually play closer to what an Amorim style is or should be. So there's that. His vertical style actually helps the forwards a bit more because he gets the ball into Xerxes, he gets the ball in behind for Højlund to run onto, for Garnacho to run onto. Opportunities come because Casemiro can play that ball forwards. That verticality really makes a big difference to our possession. Yeah. There's one thing in particular Casemiro has over Ugarte, is aerial ability. Casemiro wins everything in the air, everything in the boxes. Ugarte wins nothing in that regard. And actually, speaking to some friends of mine, like, highlighted a few of our set-piece goals this season have come with Ugarte not defending well in the box off a set-piece. He's really struggling in that regard. Casemiro deals with all of those situations. Like, someone said it at some point, Casemiro's head in the box is just like a magnet. Like,
it really is.
It's genuinely...
In both boxes, by the way.
It's ridiculous. Like, he just deals with everything. But I think that's really important with the set pieces being one of our weaknesses this season as well. A massive, at a point, like, almost 50% of our goals had been like conceded from set pieces. But having a guy who can win everything in the air makes such a difference.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit. In the next few weeks, the teams I've listed that we're playing, we're not going to have a lot of the ball. So Forest is away. Man City is a Man City game. Newcastle is away. Lyon is away and then at home, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, away.
And then Bournemouth, so the Wolves game's then at home and the Bournemouth game also away. So when we're playing a lot of the big teams, a lot of those games, the teams literally are like, they're fighting for Champions League right now. The games are away from home. So we're going to have less of the ball. So if Casemiro's best qualities are actually when he's on the ball, is it still wise to play him for majority of those games, even though we're not actually going to have a lot of the ball?
It depends, because I actually think he's better off the ball than Ugarte is.
As well.
I think Ugarte covers big spaces better now because Casemiro's legs have gone better in terms of the positional side, in terms of winning his duels. I think Casemiro is better.
Yeah, I think Casemiro is better one-on-one duels. I think Ugarte is aggressive. You know, he's physical, and you're going to need that. But I think for these games that you're talking about, I think even maybe a combination of the two, and you play Bruno further up, I'd be happy with that. You know, just we've got to preserve what we have at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do want to say, chat, you get involved as well. Let us know, Casemiro or Ugarte over the next couple of weeks. Because, I mean, both will play, right? We know this.
Yeah. We won't play Casemiro.
We're playing, we can't play Casemiro twice a week because he played 3 times in like 8 days, and Amorim said at the end of the game, Casemiro is absolutely finished. Yeah. Same with Mazraoui. He said that Mazraoui is absolutely finished as well, but Mazraoui is, I think, he's a little bit one of a kind. I think Mazraoui is. That's a whole other conversation.
One of my favourite players right
Your
now.
best mate, of course,
Yeah.
Nusayr Mazwari.
Apparent lookalike too.
And your father. But both will play, and I'm also going to ask the question of, if they are both going to play, who should play which games? The Europa League, for example. Is it better if we play Casemiro against Lyon and then leave him out of the game against Newcastle and maybe against Man City, or like he comes off the bench and he starts the Lyon games? Because the Lyon games will be the ones where, out of all those games I've listed, bar the Wolves game, will have the most possession, and also is by far the most important game. Those two legs, so much more important than the coming Manchester derby. If we lose away against Newcastle, I'm not going to give as much of a shit, right? Because I'm just not, because it's the Premier League, we're 13th, it's away in St James's Park, which is almost always a horrible day for anyone. So, and Newcastle are just coming off the back of winning a Carabao Cup and all of that nonsense. I say nonsense, we won the Carabao Cup 2 years ago, didn't we? And we beat them. But so if you were to divide the minutes between the two of them, where should those minutes be divided?
I'd say Casemiro against Nottingham definitely, because he's had a 2-week rest for the international break. Meanwhile, Ugarte's flown to South America, played, and he's going to be flying back.
Also played it, by the way, at an altitude of over 4,000 metres, which is outrageous. Yeah,
and
there's like no oxygen.
Apparently,
up there.
the players are like really struggling with that. So definitely not Ugarte for Forest. And I think Forest, we might have a bit more of the ball as well, because Forest are obviously quite a transitional side. They tend to kind of be quite solid at the back and then hit you on the counter with players like Elanga and Callum Hudson-Odoi. And Chris Wood gets in the box and just does his thing. Come to Old Trafford, please. But City, I don't mind Ugarte against City, to be honest, because I feel like City get overwhelmed by the intensity, and I think that Ugarte does. He was pretty good against City in the last game, partly because of that, because he just has that intensity about him.
Etihad, he was fantastic.
Yeah, so I wouldn't mind Ugarte against City. Then obviously Casemiro in the Lyon games. Again, if you have to sacrifice Casemiro for Newcastle so that he can be fresh for this home leg against Lyon, do it. I don't mind. But yeah, St James's Park is just going to be a horrible, horrible day anyways.
This is
regardless of what midfield...
I've already mentally, I've lost that game.
Regardless of what midfield we play, they are going to run through the midfield that game. We just have to hope our defence and attack are on it.
Could that be a game where we play both of them?
I mean, possibly, but I still think they'll just run through us, man. That Newcastle midfield is ridiculous. Bruno, Guimaraes, Tonali, and Joe Linton. You got Joe Willock as an option as well.
So much athleticism,
power. It's just stupid. It's
stupidly
Eddie
powerful.
Howe has cooked something up.
They run like their lives depend on it as well, and they're good with the ball.
Yeah, such an overwhelming kind of midfield.
The fact they overwhelm, like Liverpool, obviously are known for being so physically overwhelming of theirs. They do it to Liverpool. Yeah. They do it to everybody.
Yeah, just get out muscled. I don't know what the remedy would be for Newcastle. I think if we're just trying to be as technical as possible, keep hold of the ball, and find our moments, maybe even counter attack, use the running against them kind of thing. Maybe, but
I wouldn't even mind Ugarte and Mount. If Mount's fit against Newcastle, Ugarte and Mount, and then play Casemiro a bit higher up.
I don't want to get my hopes up with Mount, because I actually like the player.
I'm so delusional, man. I think he's good. We're going to change completely once he's back.
I see him 1 game, 2 games, and he'll put in a decent shift, and then you won't see him again.
I have faith in. So I do have faith in Mount. I know I'm going to get my heart broken again, but I do have faith in Mount. I just quick have a yes, Joe. We are live. I do have faith in Mount, because Amorim is completely in love with the guy in terms of a footballer. Obviously, he's got a wife and kids. It's because Amorim, every time he speaks about Mount, right, he's got a smile on his face. He goes, "This kid is an incredible footballer." All of this, all of that, and we are clearly managing him, right. So he's come back for the Leicester game. He's had these 2 weeks break, and I think he is also so determined to stay fit. I think he is unlucky. I think maybe sometimes when players have constant injury issues, right, it might just be because they're not doing everything completely correctly. Amorim said in press conference, he's like, Mount has been so 100% on it. He's got the right diet. He's doing everything every day. His rehabilitation has been, quote unquote, perfect, but he just needs to start playing. This is what these are Amram's words, and I trust Amram. I believe he's overly candid, right? Amram, we all know he's completely very overly candid, but that means everything he says is true.
Yeah.
So if he's saying this about Mount, I believe him about Mount, and I really hope, and I really think if Mount is in this team and he can play, I think we'll become a much more dynamic side.
Do you know who I think we should play against City and Newcastle instead of Ugarte? I'm going to change my opinion.
You're going to say Collier?
Yes, Toby Collier. What a player!
Yeah.
I love Toby Collier, honestly.
I like Toby Collier, definitely.
Because I think he brings that same intensity and stuff Ugarte does, but he's actually a better jeweler and a bit more kind of positionally
better on the ball.
On it.
He glides a bit, when he's on the pitch.
Yeah,
I think
better on the ball for me.
Yeah.
I just love seeing him sprint up and down like ridiculously, like all game.
He does.
Powerful
He does,
player.
doesn't he?
He might be actually good for the Newcastle game.
Yeah,
Definitely.
he'd be good for Newcastle and City as well. But I mean, he might go with Ugarte against because he was good against them last time. But I'd just love to see Collier start getting some more minutes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because he's clearly highly rated.
We have another super chat, and it's about DJ yet again. Joe Fleming Mulford says, "Big up DJ, welcome back to the channel. Been missed."
Hey, I'm here. I didn't go anywhere, but I'm here.
Yeah, you're back and you're live. But yeah, I think overall, despite the fact that we have this run of games, I'm feeling better about this run of games than I would have back 2 months ago. Maybe it's just the international break. The players coming back were a bit rested.
Yeah.
Our players on the international break have performed well. Mazwari apparently has been fantastic with Morocco. I don't know if you guys watched the Portugal-Denmark games, but Dorgu was fantastic.
Yeah.
Rasmus Højlund scored. I know he wasn't as great in the second leg, but Rasmus Højlund scored. Eriksson goal and assist. Bruno Fernandes just is Bruno Fernandes.
From what I saw in the second leg, like apparently he was quite sharp first half. Didn't really get goals from people, but yeah, like his touch and stuff, his hold up was quite sharp. And I think that's again just going to see that confidence now.
I think this is what I mean. I think we do have some stuff to look forward to. Like De Ligt, he went on, so he's played 8 games in a row for us, right? He played every minute, including 120 against Fulham.
Yeah.
But he went on the international break and played 4 minutes. It was 6 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, great, fantastic.
Yeah,
he got his 50th cap, big up, well done, De Ligt. But he played 4 minutes. He'll have just done rehab stuff, stayed fit, whatever, but not played intense matches.
He's been a monster for us recently as well.
I really like him.
Yeah, he
I've
has.
always, but since we signed De Ligt, I know there's been dodgy times, but I've always said like him, I like him.
Yeah, I think the dodgy times was just him finding his feet.
Exactly. Most players do. Xerxes been finding his feet, and now he's been amazing.
As well, for example, that penalty against Sociedad. I don't know what differently he can do, to be honest. I saw some people getting
that's
on
just
him.
unlucky.
Just straight bad unlucky.
Yeah, just that sometimes happens, but I think like the block against Leicester, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That block was like because I had I had Manvara in my FPL. I was sat there just going, basically the entire game because I wanted my 6 points, and I'm no longer last in my league, which is fantastic because whoever finishes last in the league with my mates this year has got to go out in their rival team's kit. Oh. So I might have to go on a night out in Liverpool kit if I lose, bro. I would, and considering the fact that like I've got a semi sort of platform for being a Man United fan, no. But I'm feeling positive. Hopefully you guys are feeling positive, whatever. But this is the last pod before we're back playing again. So I was going to ask for your score predictions for the Nottingham Forest match.
I think 3-1 United.
Damn.
Yep, 3-1 United. I think Højlund gets another goal.
Yeah. 2-1 United. Højlund goal. And who else to score? I want to go Casemiro.
You think Casemiro banger or Casemiro header? Because he only ever does those.
I reckon Casemiro header.
Yeah.
Casemiro header from a corner or some
corner
Bruno
or something.
Fernandes
I think Bruno
magic.
will score as well.
Magic,
actually.
yeah. I think Bruno will score. I do actually agree, and it's just me being optimistic. But why not smile a bit?
Yeah, smile a bit, man.
We haven't lost in 7 games. 7-game unbeaten run. It just doesn't feel like it.
Quite a few draws, but
yeah, it's not a loss. It's not a loss. I agree with the 2-1. We'll concede, but I believe in this team a little bit more than I did a few months ago.
Yeah.
Especially with the injuries coming back and stuff. But I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Yusuf and DJ, for coming on. Especially Yusuf coming on 5 hours sleep fasting as well. So, honestly, very, very much appreciated. All of you guys watching who've got involved, commented, liked, make sure to subscribe. All the social links are below. And a big well done once again to United View for winning, is it YouTube Channel of the Year, the SGA Awards. That is, it's so well deserved. Flex, KG, Josh, Owen, Mina, all of you guys have been smashing it. I'm sure the trophy will end up in here at some point. I want to see it and hold that, and I need to nominate District next year. You know, I need to nominate us next year. But thank you so much for watching. As always, if you aren't watching live, in the comments, please let us know what you've thought about what we've spoken about Andre Onana, Kobbie Mainoo, Ugarte, Casemiro, Collier, the upcoming games, everything. Apart from that, we will see you next Thursday at 12:30.